The fluorescent lights of Marcello's trattoria buzzed faintly overhead, a sound I'd learned to tune out after 9 months of working double shifts. My feet ached in the mandatory black pumps, and the small of my back protested every time I bent to clear another table. Friday nights were always chaos. Wealthy patrons packed into red leather booths, the air thick with garlic, wine, and expensive cologne. Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work. So if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel. I moved through the dining room with practiced efficiency, balancing plates of osso buco and handmade ravioli, my peripheral vision tracking which tables needed attention. Table 6 wanted more bread. Table 11 was ready for their check. Table 3, the businessman who came every week, was signaling for another scotch. "Emma, VIP section," Marco hissed as he rushed past me toward the kitchen, his face flushed with the stress of managing a fully booked Friday service. "Corner booth. They just arrived." My stomach dropped. The VIP section meant high-maintenance customers, exacting standards, and Marco breathing down my neck to ensure perfection. But it also meant better tips, and I desperately needed every extra dollar. My student loan payment was due in 3 days, and my bank account was looking distressingly thin. "On it," I replied, smoothing down my black apron and grabbing fresh menus from the host stand. As I approached the corner booth, the most private table in the restaurant, partially hidden behind an ornate wine rack, I felt the atmosphere shift. 3 men in dark suits occupied one side, their eyes constantly scanning the room with a vigilance that marked them immediately as security. But it was the 2 figures on the opposite side that made my breath catch. A woman, perhaps in her early 60s, sat with perfect posture, her silver-streaked dark hair pulled into an elegant chignon. She wore a simple but clearly expensive navy dress, pearls at her throat, catching the candlelight. Beside her sat a young man, couldn't have been more than 25, with the same strong jawline and olive complexion, dressed in a charcoal suit that fit him like it had been made specifically for his lean, muscular frame. But it was his eyes that stopped me, dark, intense, and completely focused on his mother as her hands moved in rapid, fluid gestures. Sign language. The woman was signing to her son, who responded with his own careful hand movements, his expression serious as he communicated silently. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. "Good evening," I said, approaching the table with my practiced server smile. "Welcome to Marcello's. My name is Emma, and I'll be—" The woman's hand stopped mid-sign. She turned to look at me, her expression polite but clearly uncomprehending. The young man's gaze shifted to me as well, and the intensity of his stare made my pulse quicken inexplicably. One of the suited men leaned forward slightly. "Signora Castellano doesn't hear," he said quietly, his accent distinctly Italian. "And her son doesn't speak. They communicate through sign language." My mind processed this information in an instant. The woman was deaf. Her son was mute. And I. Without thinking, my hands moved, fingers forming the signs that had become second nature after years of volunteering at the Deaf Community Center during college. "Good evening. My name is Emma. I'll be serving you tonight. Welcome to our restaurant." The transformation on Signora Castellano's face was immediate and breathtaking. Her eyes widened with delight, and her hands flew into motion. "You sign. Oh, how wonderful. No one here ever signs to us." The young man, her son, had gone completely still, his dark eyes fixed on my hands with an intensity that made my skin prickle with awareness. Something flickered across his face, surprise perhaps, or something deeper I couldn't quite identify. "I learned at university," I signed back, careful to keep my movements clear. "My ASL isn't perfect, but I hope we can understand each other." "Your signing is beautiful," Signora Castellano replied, her face glowing with warmth. "Please, sit with us for a moment." I'm working," I stammered, suddenly aware of Marco watching from across the dining room. "I have other tables too." The young man's hand moved then, just once, gesturing firmly to the empty space beside his mother. It wasn't a request. His expression brooked no argument, and despite not uttering a single word, his authority was unmistakable. One of the suited men stood, materializing beside me. "Miss, the family would appreciate if you could spare a moment." Family. The word sent a chill down my spine. I'd worked at Marcello's long enough to recognize when customers weren't just wealthy. They were powerful, connected, the kind of people you didn't refuse without consequence. I slid into the booth beside Signora Castellano, acutely conscious of the young man's gaze tracking my every movement. This close, I could see the sharp intelligence in his dark eyes, the way his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly as he studied me. "What's your name?" his mother signed. "Emma Foster." "And you work here every night?" "Most nights, Tuesday through Saturday." The young man's hands moved then, his signing precise and controlled. "How long have you known sign language?" His mother reached out, touching his arm gently. "Dante, don't interrogate the poor girl." Dante. So that was his name. "It's fine," I signed, looking directly at him even as my heart hammered in my chest. "I learned 6 years ago. I volunteered at a community center for the deaf while I was in college." "Which college?" He signed. "I didn't finish," I admitted, feeling heat rise to my cheeks. "I had to leave in my 3rd year. Financial reasons." Something softened in Dante's expression, though his intensity never wavered. Before he could sign another question, Marco appeared at the edge of the booth, his face a mask of deference that I'd never seen before. "Signora Castellano." "Signora Castellano," he said, his voice pitched higher than normal. "Is everything satisfactory? Emma is one of our finest servers. If you need anything at all." Signora Castellano smiled at Marco, then signed to me. "Tell him we're very pleased. You may serve our table exclusively tonight." I translated for Marco, whose eyes widened with something between relief and terror. Of course," he babbled. "Emma will take excellent care of you. Emma, the Castellanos' meals are on the house, naturally. Whatever they want." After Marco retreated, I turned back to my unexpected companions. "I should take your drink orders," I signed. "Unless you'd like to look at the menu first?" "Wine," Signora Castellano signed. "Something red. You choose for us." "And for you?" I asked Dante. His eyes held mine for a long moment before his hands moved. "Water. Still. Not sparkling. With lemon." I nodded and stood to retrieve their drinks, but Dante's hand shot out, his fingers closing gently but firmly around my wrist. The touch sent electricity up my arm, and I froze. He released me immediately, his expression unreadable as he signed. "Who else is here tonight?" The question seemed oddly specific. "In the restaurant?" "Many people. It's Friday night," so his jaw tightened with what might have been frustration. He tried again. "Anyone unusual? Anyone who doesn't belong?" A chill ran down my spine. "I don't understand." One of the suited men leaned forward, murmuring something in rapid Italian to Dante, whose expression darkened. He signed something back too fast for me to follow, then turned his attention back to me. "It's nothing," he signed, though the tension in his shoulders suggested otherwise. "Please, the drinks." I hurried to the bar, my mind racing. The way Dante had asked that question, the immediate response from his security, the barely concealed concern on his face, something was wrong. As I waited for the bartender to pour their wine, I found myself scanning the dining room with new eyes. Most of the patrons looked exactly as they should. Well-dressed couples, business dinners, a birthday celebration in the far corner. But there near the kitchen entrance, a man in a dark jacket sat alone, his plate of pasta barely touched, his attention seemingly focused on his phone, but his posture too rigid, too alert. My heart began to race. I'd grown up in this city. I knew the stories, the rumors, the whispered names of families who controlled territories, like medieval lords. Castellano, the name echoed in my memory, surfacing from news reports I'd half heard, conversations I'd half forgotten. The Castellano family, one of the most powerful and most dangerous crime families in the city. And I'd just sat down to chat with them like they were normal customers. When I returned with their drinks, Dante's eyes met mine immediately, searching my face as if he could read my thoughts. I set down the wine glasses with hands that trembled only slightly, then placed his water before him. "Thank you," he signed. "You're welcome," I replied automatically. His mother had picked up her menu, but Dante's attention remained fixed on me. "You look frightened," he signed. "Why?" I hesitated, then decided honesty might be safer than obvious lies. "I realized who you are. And does that change how you see me?" The question was surprisingly vulnerable coming from someone who wielded the kind of power the Castellano name implied. "I don't know you well enough to have an opinion," I signed carefully. "I only know your reputation." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Reputations are often exaggerations, and sometimes they're understatements. This time his smile was genuine, transforming his face from merely handsome to devastating. Fair enough. Signora Castellano looked up from her menu, glancing between us with evident amusement. My son likes you, she signed to me. He never smiles like that. Mother, Dante signed, a hint of exasperation in his movements. It's true, she insisted, then turned to me. He's been so serious since his father died. It's good to see him smile. The mention of his father's death created a moment of heavy silence. I knew that story too, Vittorio Castellano. Shot outside his favorite restaurant 3 years ago. The assassination had sparked a brief but brutal war between families that left the city on edge for months. I'm sorry for your loss, I signed to them both. Signora Castellano reached out, patting my hand gently. You're kind. Now, tell me what I should eat tonight. What's the best dish? I fell into the familiar routine of describing menu items, grateful for the return to normalcy. Signora Castellano ordered the branzino, while Dante chose the bistecca fiorentina, rare. As I turned to leave in their order, I caught movement in my peripheral vision. The man near the kitchen, the one who'd been watching his phone, had risen from his seat. He was moving toward the restroom corridor, but his path would take him directly past the Castellanos' booth. My pulse spiked. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I was being paranoid. But something in the way he moved, the deliberate casualness of his gait, set off alarm bells in my mind. Without thinking, I stepped directly into his path, forcing him to stop or collide with me. Oh, I'm so sorry, I said loudly, fumbling with my order pad as if I'd been distracted. I wasn't watching where I was going. The man's eyes were cold, calculating. No problem, he muttered, trying to move around me. I shifted with him, maintaining the obstruction. Can I help you find something? The restrooms are just past. I know where they are, he snapped, irritation flashing across his face. Over his shoulder, I could see Dante had gone rigid, his attention, locked on the man now trapped by my accidental interference. One of the suited men had risen from the booth, his hand moving to his jacket. The stranger must have noticed the change in atmosphere because his expression shifted, calculation replacing irritation. Excuse me, he said more politely, and this time I let him pass. He continued toward the restrooms, but I noticed 2 things. His pace was quicker now, and one of Dante's security detail had followed him, maintaining a discreet but unmistakable distance. I turned back to the Castellanos' table, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Dante was staring at me with an expression I couldn't read, part surprise, part something else entirely. Sit, he signed abruptly. I need to put in your order, sit. Please. The addition of please made it feel less like a command. I slid back into the booth, very aware that every person at this table, except Signora Castellano, who was blissfully examining the wine list, knew exactly what had just happened. Dante's hands moved slowly, deliberately. Why did you do that? Do what? I signed, playing ignorant. His eyes narrowed slightly. You know what? I glanced at his mother, who was now watching our exchange with curiosity, then back to Dante. He looked wrong, I signed simply. The way he was sitting, the way he was moving. It felt wrong. You could have been hurt, Dante signed, and there was something almost like anger in the sharp movements of his hands. If you were right about him, were you expecting trouble tonight? I interrupted. He hesitated, then nodded once. Then I'm glad I trusted my instincts. We stared at each other for a long moment, some unspoken communication passing between us that had nothing to do with sign language. Finally, Dante raised his hand, catching the attention of one of his security team. Enzo, he signed and spoke simultaneously the first time I'd heard him make any sound. His voice was rough, slightly hoarse, as if speaking caused him physical discomfort. Take care of the situation. Quietly. Enzo nodded and disappeared toward the restrooms. Does it hurt? I signed before I could stop myself. Speaking? Dante's expression flickered with surprise at my directness. Yes, he signed. Damaged vocal cords. An old injury. From when your father, he cut me off with a sharp gesture. Yes. The single sign carried a weight of grief and rage that made my chest tighten with unexpected sympathy. Signora Castellano, sensing the shift in mood, signed something to her son. He responded with a reassuring gesture, then turned back to me. You should go put in our order, he signed, before the kitchen closes. It was a dismissal, but not an unkind one. I stood, but before I could leave, Dante's hand caught mine, not grabbing, just a gentle touch that made me pause. Thank you, he signed with his free hand, for seeing what others missed. The sincerity in his dark eyes made something flutter in my chest that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with a connection I didn't understand and probably shouldn't want. "You're welcome," I signed, then extracted my hand from his and hurried toward the kitchen. In the organized chaos of Marcello's kitchen, I leaned against the cool stainless steel counter, trying to steady my breathing. What had I just done? I deliberately interfered in something that was clearly Castellano family business, the kind of business that got people hurt or worse. "You okay?" Rosa, the sous chef, asked as she plated a dish of carbonara. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Just a busy night," I lied, handing her my order ticket. As I waited for their meals to be prepared, I couldn't stop replaying the moment when Dante had thanked me, the way his fingers had felt against mine, warm, surprisingly gentle for hands that undoubtedly knew violence. I was playing with fire. I knew it. The smart thing would be to serve their dinner, accept whatever generous tip they left, and forget this night ever happened. But when I returned to their table carrying perfectly plated dishes, when Dante's eyes found mine and held them with an intensity that made my pulse race, I knew forgetting wasn't going to be an option. The man from earlier never returned from the restrooms. I didn't ask what happened to him. Some questions, I was learning, were better left unasked. The rest of the evening passed in a strange blur of normalcy and tension. I served the Castellanos their meal, watching as Signora Castellano savored every bite of her branzino while signing enthusiastically about the preparation. Dante ate methodically, his attention divided between his mother's conversation and the constant surveillance of the dining room. Every few minutes, his eyes would find mine across the restaurant as I tended to my other tables. Each time our gazes met, I felt that same jolt of awareness, that same inexplicable pull toward a man I should absolutely be running from. Around 9:30, as the dinner rush began to wind down, Enzo returned to the booth. He leaned close to Dante, murmuring something that made Dante's jaw tighten. Whatever news he'd received, it wasn't good. Signora Castellano noticed her son's tension immediately. Her hands moved with maternal concern, asking questions I couldn't follow from my position across the room. Dante's responses were brief, dismissive, clearly trying to shield his mother from whatever threat had been lurking in Marcello's tonight. When I brought their dessert tiramisu for Signora Castellano and espresso for Dante, his mother surprised me by taking my hand in both of hers. "You have good instincts," she signed, her expression warm but serious. "My son tells me you saw danger before his own security did." I glanced at Dante, who was watching our exchange with an unreadable expression. "I just noticed someone who seemed out of place," I signed back, downplaying my role. "Nothing more." "Nothing more," Signora Castellano repeated, a knowing smile on her lips. "You're modest. I like that." She released my hand and signed something else, but this time her movements were directed at Dante, not me. Whatever she said made him shift uncomfortably in his seat, a hint of color rising to his cheeks. "Mother, please," he signed. She ignored him, turning back to me. "Do you work tomorrow night?" "Yes, ma'am. Saturday is always busy." "Good. We'll return." She smiled mischievously. "My son rarely finds people he can communicate with so easily. Most people treat him like he's broken because he doesn't speak. He's not broken," I signed before I could think better of it. "Just different." The look Dante gave me then was intense enough to steal my breath. For a moment the busy restaurant faded away, and there was only him and the raw gratitude in his dark eyes. "See?" and his mother signed triumphantly. "I told you I liked her." After they left, Dante pressing several crisp $100 bills into my hand despite my protests, enough to cover 3 months. Of my student loan payments, I stood in the empty VIP section, trying to process what had just happened. "Emma!" Marco's voice cut through my thoughts. He rushed over, his face flushed with excitement. "Do you have any idea who that was?" "The Castellanos?" I said quietly. "Not just the Castellanos. That was Dante Castellano. The Dante Castellano." Marco gripped my shoulders, shaking me slightly. "His father ran half this city before he was killed. Now Dante controls it all, and he's twice as dangerous because people underestimate him. They think because he can't speak, he's weak." Marco's eyes were wild. "He's not weak, Emma. He's ruthless, and he just sat in your section for 3 hours." "He was having dinner with his mother," I said, pulling away from Marco's grip. "That's all. That's all. That's all." Marco laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Emma, men like Dante Castellano don't just have dinner. Everything they do is calculated. Every person they interact with becomes part of their world. whether they want to or not. His words echoed my own fears, the warnings I'd been trying to ignore all evening. I'm just a waitress, I said firmly. I served them food. That's the extent of our relationship. Marco looked at me with something like pity. For your sake, I hope you're right. But I wasn't right. I knew it the moment I stepped out of Marcello's back entrance at midnight and found a sleek black car idling in the alley. The rear window lowered, revealing Dante's face in the dim light. My first instinct was to run. My second was to approach. And that's what terrified me, that my second instinct was stronger than my first. I walked to the car slowly, my heart hammering against my ribs. Dante gestured for me to get in. When I hesitated, he pulled out his phone and typed something, then held it up to the window. Please, I just want to talk. 5 minutes. Against every ounce of common sense I possessed, I opened the door and slid into the back seat. The interior was pristine and smelled of leather and expensive cologne. Dante sat on the opposite side, maintaining a careful distance, as if he knew his presence alone was intimidating enough without encroaching on my space. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then his hands began to form words. You saved my life tonight. I shook my head. I just delayed someone. Your security would have. No, he signed emphatically. He had a weapon. A knife, small enough to slip past metal detectors. If he'd reached our booth. Dante's hands trembled slightly before he controlled them. My mother was sitting on the outside. She would have been closest to him. The implication hit me like a physical blow. The man hadn't been targeting Dante at all. He'd been after Signora Castellano. Why? I signed, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. To hurt me, Dante replied simply. My enemies know the fastest way to destroy me is through the people I love. The raw honesty in his admission made my chest tighten. I'm sorry, I signed inadequately. Don't be sorry. He leaned forward slightly, his intense gaze holding mine. I owe you a debt I can never properly repay. You protected my mother when you had no reason to, when doing so could have put you in danger. I didn't think about it, I admitted. Something felt wrong, and I reacted. Instinct, Dante signed, the kind that can't be taught. He paused, seeming to wrestle with something, then continued. I need to know you're safe, that no one will retaliate against you for interfering tonight. A chill ran down my spine. I hadn't even considered that possibility. Am I in danger? Not if you're under my protection, he signed, which is what I'm offering. Protection? I spoke aloud without thinking, my hands too shaky to sign properly. Dante's expression softened slightly at my obvious fear. He pulled out his phone again and typed, I know how this sounds. I know what my name means in this city, but I'm asking you to trust me. Let me ensure you're untainted. Safety. No strings, no obligations beyond that. There are always strings, I signed, finding my composure again. Then let me be clear about what I want. His dark eyes never left mine as his hands moved with deliberate precision. I want to see you again. Not as a waitress serving my table, but as someone I can talk to. Someone who sees me, not just the Castellano name. My breath caught. This was so far beyond anything I should even consider. Dante Castellano was dangerous in every possible way, not just because of what he did, but because of how he made me feel, seen, valued, important in a way I'd never experienced before. I don't know anything about your world, I signed slowly. Good. Keep it that way. His expression was serious. I'm not asking you to be part of my business. I'm asking if I can see you again. Just you and me, talking. About what? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Everything. Nothing. Whatever people talk about when they're trying to know each other. The simple, the humanity of that desire, the wish to just talk. To be known resonated with something deep inside me. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. One coffee, I signed before I could talk myself out of it. Public place. Daytime. The smile that transformed Dante's face was breathtaking. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. There's a cafe 3 blocks from your apartment. Dolce Vita. I stiffened. How do you know where I live? He had the grace to look slightly abashed. I had someone look into you after tonight. I needed to know if you'd been planted by my enemies, if the timing of your presence was too convenient. And I signed, not sure whether to be angry or understanding. You're exactly who you appear to be. Emma Foster, 26 years old, Former university student working 2 jobs to pay off loans after your father's medical bills drained your family's savings. He paused. He died of cancer. The casual recitation of my painful history should have enraged me, but instead I felt oddly bare, exposed in a way that wasn't entirely unpleasant. I'm sorry about your father, Dante signed. I know what it's like to lose someone that way, to watch them fade while you stand by helpless. Your father was murdered, I signed gently. That's different. Cancer murdered mine. His hands moved with careful emphasis. Your father, my father, both were taken before their time. The method matters less than the loss. The unexpected depth of understanding in his words created a connection between us that transcended our vastly different circumstances. 2 p.m. I signed an agreement. Dolce vita. I'll have a car pick you up. No. I cut him off firmly. I'll meet you there. If we're doing this, we do it like normal people. Something like respect flickered in his expression. As normal as possible, he amended. And I understood the implicit caveat men like Dante Castellano could never be truly normal. No matter how much they might want to be. I barely slept that night. My roommate, Sophia, not Dante's mother, but my perpetually optimistic best friend from college, noticed my distraction immediately when I stumbled into our tiny kitchen at 7 a.m. You look like you've seen a ghost, she said, pouring me coffee without asking. Bad shift? Complicated shift, I replied, cradling the warm mug in both hands. Complicated how? Sophia's eyes narrowed with concern. Emma, what happened? I told her everything: the Castellanos' arrival, the sign language connection, the suspicious man, Dante's car waiting for me after work. By the time I finished, Sophia was staring at me with an expression caught between horror and disbelief. Emma Foster, she said slowly, please tell me you did not agree to meet with a Mafia boss for coffee. He's not a... I stopped, because of course he was exactly that. It's just coffee. Public place. Lots of people around. Lots of people who probably work. For him, Sophia countered. Emma, this is insane. You know what the Castellano family does, right? The rumors about what happened to the Marchetti family after they tried to move into Castellano territory? I did know. Everyone knew. The Marchettis had simply disappeared. All of them. Their businesses, their properties, their very existence, erased from the city as if they'd never been. That's different, I said weakly. How? Those were his enemies. I'm just... What? Sophia interrupted. What are you to him, Emma? Because I promise you, men like Dante Castellano don't chase after waitresses for innocent coffee dates. There's always an angle. Always. Her words echoed Marco's warnings, and beneath my stubborn desire to see Dante again, I knew they were right. This was dangerous territory I was walking into, and not just physically. He lost his ability to speak when his father was killed, I said quietly. Most people treat him like he's less than human because of it, but he's not. He's just different. Isolated in ways that have nothing to do with his family's business. Sophia's expression softened slightly. Your savior complex is going to get you killed one day. It's not a savior complex. It's just... I struggled to articulate the pull I felt toward Dante. When I'm signing with him, when we're communicating in that space where words don't matter, I see someone who's desperately lonely. Someone who's been defined by violence and power for so long that people forget he's human underneath it all. And you want to remind him he's human, Sophia said gently. I get it, Em. I do. You've always seen the best in people. But what if there is no best in Dante Castellano? What if the reputation is exactly who he is? I didn't have an answer to that. All I had was the memory of how his eyes had softened when I'd signed that he wasn't broken, just different. The gratitude in his expression when I'd protected his mother. The vulnerability in his request to simply talk. One coffee, I said finally. If he's everything you and Marco say he is, I'll know, and I'll walk away. Sophia looked like she wanted to argue further, but instead she just pulled me into a fierce hug. Take your phone. Keep it on. Text me every 15 minutes so I know you're okay. That's excessive. Text me every 15 minutes, she repeated firmly. Or I'm calling the police. I agreed, though I suspected the police would be spectacularly useless if something went wrong with Dante Castellano. Dolce Vita was a small, charming cafe tucked between a bookstore and a flower shop on a tree-lined street in one of the city's quieter neighborhoods. I arrived 10 minutes early, using the time to study the other patrons and convince myself I wasn't making a catastrophic mistake. An elderly couple shared a pastry by the window. A young mother bounced a fussy baby while sipping an espresso. A college student hunched over a laptop, headphones blocking out the world. All perfectly normal. Nothing sinister. Then Dante walked in, and every head turned. He commanded attention without trying, tall, broad-shouldered, moving with a predatory grace that marked him as dangerous even in casual clothes. He wore dark jeans and a navy sweater that emphasized his muscular build, his hair slightly damp as if he'd recently showered. 2 men flanked him at a discreet distance, security, obviously, but they took a table near the door rather than hovering over us. Dante's eyes found mine immediately, and the smile that touched his lips was genuine enough to make my traitorous heart skip a beat. He slid into the seat across from me, his large frame making the small cafe table seem toy-sized. "You came," he signed, something like relief in his expression. I said I would. People say many things. Few follow through when faced with who I actually am. There was a weariness in that statement that made me ache for him. "I'm not most people," I signed back. "No," he agreed, his dark eyes warm. "You're definitely not." A waitress appeared, young, pretty, her eyes lingering on Dante with obvious appreciation. "What can I get you?" she asked, her voice slightly breathless. Dante gestured to me, indicating I should order first. "Cappuccino, please," I said. Dante pulled out his phone and typed, then showed it to the waitress. "Americano, black." "Of course, Mr. Castellano," she said, and I noted how she knew his name without asking. This wasn't random cafe. This was his territory. After she left, I signed, "You own this place. My family owns the building. But the cafe is independently operated. I just come here sometimes when I need." He paused, searching for the right sign. "Peace. Does it work? Do you find peace here?" "Usually no. But today." His eyes held mine. "Maybe." We fell into an easy conversation then, or as easy as conversation could be when conducted entirely through sign language in a public cafe. Dante asked about my life, my unfinished degree, my dreams before financial reality crushed them. I asked about his mother, carefully avoiding questions about his father or the family business. "She's remarkable." I signed about Signora Castellano. The way she navigates the world without hearing there's no bitterness in her, only joy. "She taught me that," Dante signed. "After my father died, after I lost my voice, I was angry, violent, lashing out at everything." His hands paused, trembling slightly. She sat me down and signed, "You can be bitter about what you've lost, or grateful for what remains. Choose carefully, because that choice defines who you become." "And you chose gratitude?" "I chose survival," he corrected. "Gratitude came later. Is still coming, actually." The honesty of that admission, the acknowledgement that he was still healing, still becoming, made him feel suddenly, startlingly real. Our coffee arrived, and for a few moments we sipped in comfortable silence, the kind that only happens when 2 people feel no pressure to fill every quiet space with noise. "Can I ask you something?" Dante signed eventually. "Of course. Why did you really step in front of that man last night? You could have alerted my security discreetly. Instead, you put yourself directly in harm's way." I considered the question carefully, wanting to give him the truth. "Because your mother reminded me of mine," I signed finally. The way she smiled, the warmth in her eyes. "My mother died 3 years ago, and there are moments when I see echoes of her in strangers. Last night, I saw her in your mother." I paused, emotions tightening my throat. I couldn't let anything happen to her. It felt like getting a second chance to protect my own mother. Dante's expression transformed the careful control he maintained, cracking, to reveal raw emotion beneath. His hand reached across the table, covering mine, and the touch was gentle, reverent almost. "I'm sorry you lost her," he signed with his free hand. "And thank you for protecting mine." We sat like that, for a long moment, his hand warm over mine, an unexpected intimacy forming in the shared understanding of loss. A phone buzzed his, and Dante checked it reluctantly. Whatever he read made his jaw tighten, the peaceful moment shattering. "I have to go," he signed, clear regret in his movements. "Business that can't wait." "It's fine," I assured him, though disappointment settled heavy in my chest. "Tomorrow night," he signed quickly. "Dinner. Let me take you somewhere nice. Dante, please." The single sign was almost desperate. I haven't enjoyed anyone's company like this in years, maybe ever. "Just one dinner." I should have said no. Every rational part of my brain screamed that I was getting in too deep, too fast, with someone far too dangerous. Instead, I signed, "One dinner, but I choose the place." Surprise flickered across his face, followed by amusement. "Deal." He stood, his security immediately alert, but before he left, he signed one more thing. "Thank you, Emma Foster, for seeing me." Then he was gone, leaving me alone with my rapidly cooling cappuccino and the undeniable truth that I was falling for the most dangerous man in the city. My phone buzzed. "Sophia, still alive?" I smiled despite myself and typed back, "Still alive. And I think I'm in trouble." "What kind of trouble?" I looked toward the door where Dante had disappeared, my heart doing complicated things in my chest, the kind I'm not sure I want to escape from. The restaurant I chose for our dinner was deliberate, a small, family-owned Thai place in a neighborhood far from Castellano territory. No marble floors, no wine cellars, no VIP sections, just honest food, warm lighting, and the kind of authenticity that couldn't be bought with money or power. When Dante's car pulled up outside my apartment building at 7 p.m. sharp, I was waiting on the curb, determined to maintain some semblance of control over this situation that was rapidly spiraling beyond my grasp. Enzo, who I now recognized as Dante's head of security, opened the door for me with a respectful nod. Inside, Dante sat with his usual perfect posture, but there was something different about him tonight, a tension in his shoulders, a tightness around his eyes. "Bad day?" I signed as the car pulled away from the curb. He smiled slightly, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Every day is complicated. Some are just more complicated than others. Do you want to talk about it?" "No." He shook his head firmly. "Tonight, I want to forget about complications and just be normal." There was that word again, normal. The thing he could never truly be but desperately wanted. "Then we'll be normal," I signed back, starting with the restaurant. "It's not fancy, but the food is incredible. I trust your judgment." When we arrived at Lotus Garden, Dante's expression was unreadable as he took in the modest storefront, the plastic chairs visible through the window, the hand-painted sign above the door. His security detail looked distinctly uncomfortable, clearly, unused to protecting their boss in such an uncontrolled environment. "This is perfect," Dante signed, surprising me. "My mother would love this place." We slid into a corner booth vinyl seats with a small tear held together by duct tape, laminated menus sticky with years of use. It was about as far from Marcello's elegant dining room as possible, and judging by the genuine smile on Dante's face, that was exactly what he needed. "You order," he signed. "I want to try what you think is best." I ordered in Thai, a skill picked up during my brief semester studying abroad before money ran out, and the elderly owner's face lit up with delight at hearing her language spoken. She chatted with me for several minutes, asking about my studies, my family, completely oblivious to the dangerous man sitting across from me. "You speak Thai," Dante signed when she left, something like wonder in his expression. "A little. I studied there for 4 months before." I trailed off, not wanting to rehash financial collapse that had ended my education. "Before your father got sick." I nodded, surprised he remembered that detail from our brief conversations. "You should finish your degree," he signed. "What were you studying?" "Linguistics." I was fascinated by how people communicate, how language shapes thought and culture. I smiled self-deprecatingly. Not exactly a lucrative field. "But meaningful," Dante countered. "Some things are worth doing even if they don't make money. Easy to say when you have money." He acknowledged the point with a slight nod. "Fair, but I meant it. You have a gift for communication, not just languages, but reading people, understanding what they need. That's rare." The food arrived, then steaming bowls of tom yum soup, crispy pad thai, green curry that made my mouth water just looking at it. Dante ate with obvious enjoyment, signing between bites about how his mother tried to cook Thai food once and nearly burned down the kitchen. "She's an excellent Italian cook," he signed, "but anything else is a disaster. Once she attempted Chinese dumplings and somehow set the water on fire." "That's not even possible," I signed, laughing. "I have photographic evidence," he insisted, pulling out his phone to show me a picture of Signora Castellano, standing in a smoke-filled kitchen, covered in flour, looking utterly baffled while flames licked the edge of a pot. I laughed so hard I nearly choked on my curry, and Dante's face transformed with genuine pleasure at having made me laugh. As we ate, the conversation flowed easily, childhood memories, embarrassing moments, the small human experiences that connected us despite the chasm between our worlds. Dante told me about learning to sign as a child, how his mother had turned her hearing loss into an adventure rather than a tragedy. She made up signs for things that didn't have official signs, he explained. Our family has a whole private vocabulary. My sister and I used to use it to talk about people right in front of them. That's brilliant and terrible, I signed. Mostly terrible, he agreed, his eyes warm with memories. But it made us close, language that only we shared. Do you miss your sister? The warmth faded slightly from his expression. Every day. But she's safer in Milan, away from all this. All this meaning the violence, the constant threats, the weight of the Castellano name that he carried like Atlas bearing the world. What would you be doing, I signed carefully, if you weren't? If your life was different? Dante was quiet for a long moment, his hands still. When he finally responded, his signs were slow, thoughtful. I wanted to be an architect, design buildings that would outlast the people who made them, create something beautiful and permanent. He smiled sadly. My father thought it was a waste of time, said Castellanos were meant to rule, not create. You could still do it, I suggested. No. The single sign was definitive. That path closed when my father died. My family, my people, they didn't need me to be what he was. Strong, feared, unbreakable. His eyes met mine. Even if inside I'm none of those things. The vulnerability in that admission made my chest ache. This man, who commanded fear and respect throughout the city, who could make people disappear with a word, was showing me the parts of himself he kept hidden from everyone else. You're stronger than you think, I signed. Real strength isn't about fear or power. It's about carrying impossible weight and still finding reasons to smile. Something shifted in Dante's expression, a softening, a opening, as if I'd reached through all his carefully constructed walls and touched something essential beneath. His hand reached across the table, fingers intertwining with mine. The touch sent warmth spiraling up my arm, and I didn't pull away. How do you do that? He signed with his free hand. Do what? Make me feel like I'm not alone. The raw honesty of the question stole my breath. You're not alone, I signed back. Not anymore. It sat like that. Hands linked across the scarred table, the busy restaurant fading into background noise. In that moment, we were just two people trying to find connection in a world that had taken too much from both of us. The elderly owner appeared with dessert we hadn't ordered, mango sticky rice, her specialty. She smiled knowingly at our joined hands, said something in Thai about young love being beautiful, and disappeared before I could correct her. What did she say? Dante signed. Nothing important, I deflected, feeling heat rise to my cheeks. His eyebrow arched. You're a terrible liar. Your face gives everything away, she said. I hesitated, then decided honesty was better than evasion. She said young love is beautiful. Dante's hand tightened around mine, his dark eyes intense. And what did you think about that? I think, I signed slowly, that we barely know each other. That this is all happening too fast. That I should be terrified of you and what you represent. But I'm not. Terrified, I mean. I'm cautious, aware of the risks, probably making a huge mistake. I met his gaze steadily. But when I'm with you, I feel more alive than I have in years. The smile that transformed Dante's face was breathtaking, open, unguarded, full of a joy that seemed almost foreign on his usually controlled features. I need to tell you something, he signed, his expression growing serious again. About last night, about the man who tried to approach our table. A chill ran down my spine despite the warm restaurant. What about him? His name was Marco Santoro. He worked for the Russo family, our rivals. He was sent to kill my mother as retaliation for. Dante's hands paused, then continued carefully. For business decisions I made last week that hurt their operations. What happened to him? Dante's jaw tightened. What needed to happen? The implication was clear, and I felt the weight of it settle over me like a cold blanket. This was the reality of Dante's world, violence met with violence, threats eliminated with finality. Does that frighten you? He signed. Knowing what I'm capable of? I should have lied, should have said no, that I understood, that I accepted the necessities of his world. Instead, I gave him the truth. Yes, I signed. It frightens me. Not because I think you'd hurt me, but because I'm starting to care about someone who lives with violence as a constant companion. Someone who might not come home one day because another Marco Santoro succeeds where this one failed. Dante's expression cracked, revealing the fear beneath not for himself, but for what his life might cost the people who dared to care about him. Then walk away, he signed, the movement sharp with emotion. Right now, before you get in any deeper, before caring about me becomes dangerous for you. Is that what you want? No. The single sign was vehement. God, no. But what I want doesn't matter if it puts you at risk. I studied his face, the sharp cheekbones, the strong jaw, the joft, dark eyes that had seen too much violence but still held capacity for gentleness. This man who was offering me an escape even as everything in his expression begged me to stay. I'm not walking away, I signed firmly. Not yet. Not until I know for certain that this I gestured between us isn't worth the risk. Emma, but I need you to be honest with me. Always. No matter how ugly the truth is. I held his gaze. Can you promise me that? He nodded slowly. I promise. Even when the truth makes you hate me, I'll tell you. I could never hate you, I signed before I could stop myself. The vulnerability that flashed across his face made him look younger, almost boyish. Don't be so sure. You don't know everything I've done. Then tell me. Not tonight, I added quickly, seeing him tense. But someday, when you're ready, tell me who you really are. Dante Castellano. All of it. And if you don't like what you learn, then at least I'll have made an informed decision. I squeezed his hand. I'm not a child who needs to be protected from reality. I'm a grown woman who can decide for herself what risks are worth taking. Respect, and something deeper admiration, perhaps shone in his eyes. My mother was right about you. What did she say? That you're exactly what I need. Someone strong enough to stand beside me, not behind me. The implication of those words, the future they suggested, should have sent me running. Instead, I felt a dangerous flutter of hope in my chest. We finished our dessert slowly, neither of us ready for the evening to end. When the check came, Dante tried to pay, but I insisted on splitting it. He looked amused by my stubbornness but acquiesced, clearly understanding that maintaining some independence was important to me. Outside, the night air was cool with the first hint of autumn. Dante's security detail materialized from wherever they'd been watching, giving us space but staying close enough to intervene if needed. Can I drive you home? Dante signed. I'd like to walk, I replied. It's only a few blocks, and it's a beautiful night. Then I'll walk with you. Enzo immediately stepped forward, signing something rapid and concerned to Dante. Dante's response was firm, brooking no argument. After a tense moment, Enzo nodded reluctantly and gestured to the other security personnel, who began setting up a perimeter that would keep us in sight while maintaining distance. We walked slowly through the quiet neighborhood, Dante's presence beside me both comforting and thrilling. Every few steps, our hands would brush, sending sparks of awareness through me. Tell me something, I signed, as we passed a small park where children had been playing earlier. Something true that you've never told anyone else. Dante was quiet for so long I thought he might not answer. Then his hands began to move. After my father died, after I woke up in the hospital with my throat bandaged and knew I'd never speak normally again, I wanted to die. His signs were measured, careful. Not because of the pain or the loss of my voice, but because I knew what I'd have to become. My father's son, his heir, the man who would carry all his violence and power forward. He stopped walking, turning to face me in the dim streetlight. I tried, he signed. Pills. They pumped my stomach at 3 a.m. while my mother sat beside the bed and held my hand. His expression was haunted. She never said a word about it. Just signed, "Tomorrow will be different." And she was right. The next day, I woke up and decided to live. Not for me, but for her. Because she'd already lost my father, I couldn't let her lose me too. Tears pricked my eyes at the rawness of his confession. Without thinking, I stepped forward and wrapped my arms around him, feeling him stiffen in surprise before his arms came around me, holding me with a gentleness that contradicted every rumor about Dante Castellano's capacity for violence. Thank you, I signed when we finally pulled apart, for trusting me with that. Your turn, he signed. Tell me something true. I took a breath, then let it out slowly. I blame myself for my father's death. He was working 3 jobs to keep me in school, to make sure I could finish my degree. The stress, the exhaustion, his doctor said it weakened his immune system, made him vulnerable to the cancer. My hands trembled as I signed. If I'd just quit school, gotten a full-time job, taken the burden off him, maybe he'd still be alive. Dante's expression was fierce as he caught my hands in his, holding them still. No, he signed emphatically when I could see his hands again. Your father chose to work hard because he loved you, because your dreams mattered to him. You didn't kill him. Life did. Circumstances did. But never, ever think his sacrifice was your fault. The absolute certainty in his signs, the way he looked at me like my guilt was the most foolish thing he'd ever encountered, made something crack open in my chest. I'd carried that blame for 2 years, let it color every decision, every dream I'd abandoned. How do you know? I signed, my vision blurring with tears, because I know what it's like to carry guilt that isn't yours to carry. His thumb brushed away a tear that had escaped. And I know that your father would hate knowing you've stopped living your life because of his death. He was right. My father would have been furious to know I'd given up on everything he'd worked so hard to give me. Thank you, I signed again, the words inadequate for what I was feeling. We stood there on the quiet street, Dante's hands still cupping my face, his dark eyes searching mine. Then, slowly, giving me every opportunity to pull away, he leaned down. The kiss was gentle at first, a question, a request for permission. When I responded, rising on my toes to meet him halfway, it deepened into something that made my head spin and my heart race. He tasted of mango and possibility, dangerous and sweet all at once. When we finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against mine. I'm falling for you, he signed, his hands shaking slightly. I know it's too soon, too fast, too dangerous, but I can't help it. Then don't, I signed back. Don't help it. Just fall. The smile that broke across his face was radiant, transforming him from the feared Mafia boss into something achingly human. We walked the rest of the way to my apartment building hand in hand, neither of us speaking verbally or through sign content, just to be together in comfortable silence. At my door, Dante kissed me again, softer this time, a promise rather than a question. Tomorrow? He signed. Tomorrow, I agreed. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of stolen moments and growing intimacy. Dante and I fell into a pattern dinners at small restaurants far from Castellano territory, walks through parks where his security detail could maintain distance, late-night conversations in his car where we talked about everything and nothing. I met his mother again, this time at her home for Sunday dinner. Signora Castellano welcomed me like family, teaching me to make her grandmother's pasta recipe while signing stories about Dante's childhood. The way she looked at us, her son and me together, with such obvious hope and happiness, made my heart ache with the responsibility of it. Sophia grew gradually less concerned as she saw how happy I was, though she still made me text her regularly when I was with Dante. Marco at the restaurant treated me with a deference that was slightly uncomfortable, clearly having been told by someone, probably Dante, that I was under Castellano protection. My life was changing in ways both subtle and profound, and I was too caught up in the whirlwind to fully process the implications. Then everything shifted. It was a Tuesday night, my day off from both jobs. I was at home, curled up on the couch with a book, when my phone rang. Dante's name appeared on the screen, but it wasn't Dante's. Number calling it was his mother's. Hello? I answered, confused. Heavy breathing, then a voice I didn't recognize. Emma Foster. You care about Dante Castellano, yes? Ice flooded my veins. Who is this? Where's Signora Castellano? She's alive. For now. Whether she stays that way depends on you. My hand tightened around the phone. What do you want? Dante has something that belongs to the Russo family. We want it back. You're going to help us get it. I don't know anything about his business. You don't need to. You just need to get him to meet you somewhere. Alone. Do that, and his mother lives. Refuse. Tell him about this call. Try to warn him in any way. The voice turned cold. And we'll send her back to him piece by piece. Nausea rose in my throat. You're lying. She's not. Check your messages. The line went dead. With shaking hands, I opened my text messages to find a photo that made my blood run cold. Signora Castellano, bound to a chair, fear stark in her, of eyes but still alive, still whole. My phone rang again. This time it was Dante. I stared at his name on the screen, torn between desperate relief and paralyzing terror. If I answered, what would I say? If I warned him, would they kill her? If I didn't, was I leading him into a trap? The phone stopped ringing. A moment later, a text appeared. Are you okay? I'm worried. Thank you for watching. For more detailed historical breakdowns, check out the other videos on your screen now, and don't forget to subscribe. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, mind racing through impossible choices. Every option led to disaster. Tell Dante, and his mother died. Help them trap him, and I became an accomplice to his murder. Do nothing, and both of them suffered from my paralysis. Another text from Dante. Emma, please answer. You're scaring me. The phone rang a third time, the unknown number. What do you want me to do? I asked, my voice hollow. Smart girl. Tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Tell Dante I need to see him at the old warehouse district, Pier 17. Tell him it's an emergency, that you're scared, whatever you need to say to get him there alone. His security will never let him go anywhere alone. That's his problem to solve. You just get him to show up. We'll handle the rest. And then what? You kill him and let her go? If everything goes smoothly, they both live. Dante gives us what we want. Everyone walks away. I wanted to believe that lie. Needed to believe it, even though every instinct screamed that the Russos had no intention of letting anyone walk away. I need proof she's alive, not just a photo. I need to see her. A pause. Video call. 2 minutes. Don't try anything stupid. The phone rang again. Video call this time. When I answered, Senora Castellano's face filled the screen. Her eyes widened when she saw me. Emma, she signed frantically. Don't. Someone grabbed her hands, forcing them down. She struggled, trying to sign again, desperate to communicate something. She's alive, the voice said off camera. Tomorrow night, Pier 17, don't disappoint us. The call ended. I sat in stunned silence, my mind fragmenting into 1,000 terrible scenarios. Then, with shaking hands, I did the only thing I could think of. I called Sophia. Em? What's wrong? I need you to listen very carefully, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. And then I need you to do exactly what I tell you. The next evening, I dressed carefully: jeans, a dark sweater, running shoes in case I needed to move quickly. I left a note for Sophia with instructions she was to follow only if I didn't return by midnight. Then I texted Dante. I need to see you. Tonight. It's important. His response was immediate. Where? I'll come to you. No. Pier 17 inches, the warehouse district. 9 p.m. A long pause. Then, that's not safe. Let me send a car, please, Dante. Just you. I need to talk to you about something. And I can't do it with your security listening. Another pause, longer this time. I could practically feel his internal debate, his instinct for self-preservation warring with his desire to give me what I asked for. Okay. 9 p.m. Just me. Guilt crashed over me in waves. I was leading him into a trap. No matter what happened next, I had betrayed him. But if it saved his mother... I arrived at Pier 17 at 8:30, the desolate warehouse district exactly as forbidding as I'd expected. Rusted shipping containers, broken windows, the smell of salt water and decay. I'd never felt more alone. At 8:45, figures emerged from the shadows, 5 men, all armed, all watching me with the cold calculation of predators. Smart girl, showing up early, one of them said. The voice from the phone. Dante on his way? Yes. Where's his mother? Safe. For now. He gestured to the warehouse behind him. You wait inside with us. When Dante arrives, you call him in. Nice and easy. I want to see her first. That wasn't the deal. Then there's no deal. I forced steel into my voice I didn't feel. I see her alive, or I call Dante right now and tell him it's a trap. The man studied me for a long moment, then nodded to one of his companions, who disappeared into the warehouse. Minutes later, he returned with Senora Castellano, her hands bound, a gag in her mouth, but her eyes fierce with anger rather than fear. When she saw me, recognition and horror flooded her expression. She began signing frantically despite her bound hands, trying to warn me, to tell me to run. She's alive, the man said. Now you uphold your end. At precisely 9 p.m., headlights cut through the darkness. A single car. Dante's. I recognized the sleek black sedan. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. The car stopped 50 feet from the warehouse. Dante emerged alone, as promised, his eyes scanning the area with the wariness of someone who knew he might be walking into danger. His gaze found me, and even from this distance, I could see the relief and confusion warring on his face. Call him, the man ordered, pressing a gun into my back. Get him inside. My hands shook as I raised them, signing across the distance. Dante, I'm sorry. He froze, understanding flooding his features, not confusion anymore, but terrible comprehension. Then everything happened at once. Gunfire erupted from positions I hadn't seen, pinning down the men around me. Dante dove behind his car as return fire split the night. Signora Castellano threw herself sideways, her bound hands not preventing her from moving with surprising agility toward cover. Someone grabbed me from behind, not the Russos, but one of Dante's security team, pulling me down behind a shipping container as bullets ricocheted off metal. "Stay down," Enzo shouted over the chaos. "Boss's orders protect the girl." "His mother," I started to say. "Already secured. Marco has her." Through the gaps in the containers, I caught glimpses of the quieted, a battle Dante moving with lethal efficiency. No longer the gentleman who'd kissed me on quiet streets, but the feared boss who'd inherited his father's empire. The Russo men were outmatched, outnumbered, Dante's security team having apparently followed him despite his orders to come alone. The gunfire ceased as abruptly as it had started. In the sudden silence, I heard groans, shouted orders, the metallic click of weapons being safed. "Clear," someone called. Enzo helped me to my feet. Across the pier, I saw Signora Castellano in Marco's arms, her bindings cut, her gag removed, signing frantically to her son who'd reached her side. Then Dante's eyes found mine. The look on his face, betrayal, hurt, confusion cut deeper than any bullet could have. He approached slowly, his security team parting to let him through. When he reached me, his hands moved with jerky, sharp motions. "You set me up." "No, yes. But my own signs were clumsy with desperation. They had your mother. They said if I didn't bring you here, they'd kill her. So you led me into an ambush, not a question, an accusation. I didn't know what else to do. They sent me a photo, a video. She was terrified. Dante, what was I supposed to do? Trust me." His signs were almost violent in their intensity. "Come to me first instead of making decisions that could have gotten us all killed. I was trying to save her. By sacrificing me?" The question hung between us, heavy with hurt and betrayal. Because that's exactly what I'd done, wasn't it? Chosen his mother's life over his, decided without consulting him, who was more worth saving. "I'm sorry," I signed, tears streaming down my face now. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know what to do. I was terrified and alone, and they gave me no time." Dante's expression cracked, fury giving way to something more complicated. Understanding, perhaps, or at least the attempt at it. "How long did you know?" He signed. "Since last night. They called me, sent the photo. Said if I warned you, they'd kill her. And you believed them." "Of course I believed them. Why wouldn't I? Because we had people watching my mother." His signs were gentler now. She was never actually in danger. The photo was from a previous attempt we'd intercepted. They were using old leverage to manipulate you. The words hit me like a physical blow. She was never. You knew? His hands moved again. "We suspected the Russos would try to use you against me. We've been monitoring your communications, following you. You've been spying on me?" Anger sparked through the guilt and fear. "Protecting you," he corrected. "There's a difference." "Is there?" I signed sharply. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been treating me like a pawn in your war with the Russos." Hurt flashed across his face. "You think that's what you are to me? A pawn? I don't know what I am to you." My hands were shaking. "I thought I was someone you cared about, someone you were honest with. But you've been lying to me, using me to keep you safe." He closed the distance between us, his hands gripping my shoulders. When I could see his signs again, they were almost desperate. "Everything I've done has been to protect you. The surveillance, the security detail you didn't know about. Even tonight I knew it was a trap the moment you texted. The location, the request to come alone, it was obvious. Then why did you come? Because you asked me to." His eyes held mine, dark and intense. "Because even knowing it was a trap, I couldn't risk that you actually needed me. The raw vulnerability in that admission undid me." I sagged against him, and his arms came around me, holding me as I finally broke down. "I'm sorry," I sobbed into his chest. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know what to do. I was so scared." His hand stroked my hair, his embrace solid and reassuring despite everything. Signora Castellano approached, her own eyes red from crying. She pulled me into a fierce hug, signing over my shoulder to her son. When I could see her hands again, she was signing to me. "You tried to save me. You put yourself at risk for me." Tears tracked down her cheeks. "Thank you, dear girl. Thank you." I almost got him killed, I signed back. But you didn't, she insisted. Because my son is smart and careful, and because your heart was in the right place even if your methods were flawed. Dante's hand found mine, squeezing gently. I need you to promise me something, he signed when I looked at him. No more secrets. No more making decisions alone that affect both of us. We're in this together now, Emma. That means trusting each other especially when things are terrifying. Can you promise me the same? I challenged. No more surveillance I don't know about? No more treating me like I'm too fragile to handle the truth? He hesitated, then nodded. I promise. Complete honesty, even when it's ugly. Even when it's ugly, I agreed. Around us, Dante's security team was efficiently dealing with the aftermath, the surviving Russo men being loaded into vehicles, evidence being collected. I didn't ask what would happen to them. Some questions were still better left unasked. Take my mother home, Dante ordered Enzo. Full security detail. No one gets within 100 yards of her. Signora Castellano signed something to her son, who shook his head firmly. She signed again, more insistently, and finally Dante's shoulders sagged in reluctant agreement. My mother wants you to stay with us tonight, he signed to me. At the family compound, where we can keep you safe. I should go home, please. His hands moved softly. I need to know you're protected. After tonight, the Russos know you matter to me. That makes you a permanent target. The weight of that reality settled over me. By caring about Dante Castellano, by letting him care about me, I'd painted a target on my own back. What does that mean for us? I signed. For any future we might have? It means we have to be careful. It means your life is going to change in ways you might not like. He cupped my face in his hands. But it also means I'll spend every day ensuring you're safe, that no one ever threatens you again. That's not a life, Dante. That's a prison. Then we'll make it a comfortable prison. His attempt at humor fell flat. I'm sorry, Emma. I'm so sorry that knowing me has put you in danger. If you want to walk away, if you need to, I'll understand. I'll make sure you're protected from a distance. Set you up somewhere the Russos can't reach you. It was the same offer he'd made before, the escape he kept providing even as his eyes begged me to stay. Do you want me to walk away? I signed. God, no. I want you to stay. I want to fall asleep beside you and wake up with you. I want to introduce you to my sister and watch my mother teach you more terrible recipes. His signs grew more passionate. I want to finish what we started, getting to know each other, building something real. But only if that's what you want. Only if you can accept the reality of my world. I looked around the pier, the evidence of violence, the armed men, the shadows where more threats probably lurked. This was Dante's reality. This would be mine too, if I stayed. I'm terrified, I signed honestly. Of the danger, of losing you, of losing myself in your world. You should be, he signed back. Everything you're feeling is rational and reasonable. But I'm not walking away. I continued. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Because when I'm with you, even knowing the risks, I feel more whole than I have in years. I placed my hand over his heart. You make me feel seen, Dante. Valued. Like I matter for who I am, not just what I can give. His eyes closed briefly, overwhelmed emotion crossing his features. You matter to me more than you can possibly know, he signed when he looked at me again. And I swear I will spend every day proving that you made the right choice by staying. He kissed me then, amid the ruins of the Russo trap, surrounded by his security team and the aftermath of violence. It should have been anything but romantic. Instead, it felt like a promise, a beginning rather than an ending. 6 months later, I stood in Signora Castellano's kitchen, attempting to recreate her lasagna recipe under her watchful and highly critical supervision. No, she signed, swatting my hand away from the sauce. You're stirring too much. Let it simmer. Be patient. Patience isn't her strong suit, Sophia commented from her spot at the kitchen island, grinning at me. She'd become a regular at these Sunday dinners, initially suspicious but gradually won over by Signora Castellano's warmth and excellent cooking. The door opened, and Dante walked in, looking exhausted but pleased to be home. His eyes found mine immediately, and the smile that transformed his face made my heart do its familiar flutter. How was the meeting? I signed. Productive. The Russo family has agreed to terms. He pulled me close, pressing a kiss to my temple. It's over, Emma. The war, the threats, all of it. We have peace. Relief flooded through me. The past 6 months hadn't been easy, learning to live with constant security, adjusting to the reality of Dante's business, dealing with the whispers and stares that followed us everywhere. But it had also brought unexpected joys. Finishing my degree with Dante's support, growing close to his mother and sister, finding a community within the Castellano family that I'd never expected. I have news too, I signed, nervous excitement fluttering in my stomach. Dante's expression immediately grew concerned. What kind of news? Instead of signing, I pulled an envelope from my pocket and handed it to him. He opened it slowly, his eyes scanning the contents. When he looked up, there were tears in his eyes. You got in, he signed, his hands shaking. Harvard, full scholarship for graduate studies in linguistics. I nodded, watching his face carefully. This was the moment that would tell me everything. Whether he would celebrate my success or ask me to stay. That's incredible, he signed. I'm so proud of you. It's in Boston, I signed. I'd have to move for 2 years. I know. His hands moved carefully. And you should go. This is your dream, Emma. I won't be the reason you give it up. What about us? He pulled me close, resting his forehead against mine. We'll figure it out. Long distance, weekend visits, whatever it takes. I didn't come into your life to clip your wings. I came to help you remember how to fly. Tears blurred my vision at the generosity of his offer, the absolute sincerity in his expression. Come with me, I signed impulsively. You said you wanted to study architecture. Boston has excellent programs. I can't leave, he interrupted gently. My family, my responsibilities, they're here. Then I'll stay, I decided. Harvard can wait. You're more important. No. His signs were firm. You're not sacrificing your future for me. I won't allow it. You won't. Allow it? I signed with exasperation. It's my decision, Dante. And I'm asking you to choose yourself. His eyes held mine. 2 years. You go to Harvard, become the linguist you're meant to be, and I'll be here waiting. If what we have is real, it'll survive the distance. Signora Castellano had been watching our exchange, and now she added her voice, signing firmly. The boy is right. Education first, romance second. Always. I'm with Dante's mom on this one. Sophia chimed in. Girl, you're going to Harvard. We'll figure out the rest. I looked around the kitchen at Sophia, who'd become like a sister. At Signora Castellano, who'd become the mother I'd lost. At Dante, whose love had helped me remember how to dream. 2 years, I signed finally. But you better visit. A lot. Every weekend I can, he promised. And when you graduate, we'll talk about what comes next. Together. Together, I agreed. As we sat down to dinner, imperfect lasagna and all, I realized that this was what I'd been searching for without knowing it. Not a life free from complications, but one rich with connection. Not a safe path, but a meaningful one. I'd warned Dante's mute son of danger by signing across a restaurant, never imagining that simple act would lead me here, to a family that had claimed me as their own, to a love that was complicated and challenging, and absolutely worth fighting for, to a future that was mine to build, with Dante beside me, rather than in front of me or behind me. When dinner ended and everyone slowly said their goodbyes, Dante pulled me onto the back porch where we could watch the sunset over the city. I love you, he signed. The first time he'd said those particular words. I should have told you months ago, but I was afraid. Afraid of what? That loving me would ruin you. That my world would consume everything beautiful about you. I took his hands in mine, holding them still so he could see my response. Your world didn't ruin me, Dante. It saved me. You saved me. I kissed him softly. I love you too. And I'm not afraid anymore. Not even a little? Terrified, I admitted with a smile. But in the best possible way. As the sun set over the city that Dante protected and I'd learned to call home, I thought about all the choices that had led me to this moment. The decision to learn sign language years ago. The night shift at Marcello's that had brought me into the Castellanos' orbit. The split-second instinct to protect a stranger who would become my family. Each choice had seemed small at the time, insignificant even. But together, they'd built a path to something extraordinary. I'd signed danger to save a life, and in doing so, had found my own salvation. That seemed like a fair trade. Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work. So if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel.